right, so let's start. Thank you for coming down to the PGSS Elections 2017 debate. I'm the CRO, Manmeet Rai, and I will be moderating the debate today. So the prior debate happened on 7th of March, which is already on the PGSS YouTube channel, the entire debate. So if you want to go down and have a look at that, you're more than welcome. Today we only have 3 candidates because some of the candidates did inform me that they could not come here because of their conflicts of their academic commitments which they already had. So I have 2 statements from 2 candidates which I'll be reading as per the bylaws. So before we go down to that, let's go down one by one and introduce each candidate. They'll have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Take your time, and then they will get 5 minutes to give their pitch, and after that you can ask them any questions. Sounds reasonable? Okay. Let's go start with you, Matthew.
So I think at least 2/3 of you guys already know me. I think you were on council a few times, right? What was your name?
Marcus.
Marcus, I'm Matthew. So nice to meet you. David and Nick, I know you guys already. So I'm Matthew, a little bit about me. I'm running for position of Financial Affairs Officer. I have been involved with the PGSS this year. I'm the neuroscience representative to council. I sit on the Internal Affairs Committee with the current VP Internal, Mina. So I have been very involved with PGSS, but before that as well, I have been very involved with student governance at McGill. In 2014, I used to be the president of my faculty in undergrad. I was the president of Arts and Science. So I did gain a lot of experience dealing with admin and dealing with bureaucracy and governance at McGill. The year after that, I was the Arts and Science representative to the Student Society of McGill University and also sitting on the board of directors. So I have gained a lot of experience throughout my undergrad that will be directly applicable to my position as Financial Affairs Officer. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't necessarily know about the Financial Affairs Officer is that it's not just a position that signs checks and makes the budget. It's also very involved in the corporate side of the PGSS with a seat on the board of directors. And so the Financial Affairs Officer is involved with legal matters of the society, human resources matters of the society, and every other financial aspect. So all this experience that I've gained throughout my time at McGill and on the board of directors will be directly applicable to my position. And I look forward to telling you more about my platform during my 5-minute period.
Hello. I have met you guys before, but hello. My name is Mansha, and I'm a computer science master's student at downtown campus in McGill. I'm an active PGSS member, and I'm running for the position of Internal Affairs Officer. I have been involved with PGSS Internal Affairs Committee with Meena and Matthew since September 2016, and I have been helping them in organizing events such as winter orientation, fall, Halloween week. Besides this, I'm also involved with McGill Dobson Center for Entrepreneurship, and I help them in the logistics of events and workshops. I have been involved in student groups since my undergraduate, and I also have experience being social media manager and operations manager at a startup. I'm running for this position because I'm really passionate about working together with people to achieve same goals together. Since I had the chance to meet you before, and I got to know a lot about my campus and the issues at my campus, in the next 5 minutes, I'll explain my ideas for the term if elected. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shufeng. I'm running for the Academic Affairs Officer position at PGSS. I graduated from a Chinese medical university. Then I came to McGill to study for a master's degree at Macdonald campus. I stayed at Macdonald campus for 3 years. Now I'm a 4th year PhD student at the Department of Experimental Surgery. I have multicultural educational background. I have studied at several universities. This allows me to better understand the difference between the university and how the students are supported by the university. I also have multidisciplinary research experience. I have managed 8 different scientific research projects and published 12 peer-reviewed scientific papers. I'm an ambassador person in my department. I was vice president of the Student Society in the Chinese Medical University. I'm really interested in this position because I strongly believe that students should have a central voice in their education. Feedback from students is important to improve the academic performance. This position is about our education, but not politics, and should represent all the students' voice to the university. As a candidate of this position, I'm going to talk about the important issue facing by legal committees. You have to judge me whether I can shoulder this responsibility of this position or not. I hope I will be able to earn your votes. Thank you very much.
We have another candidate who has just joined us. Why don't you grab a seat, join us on the table. If you want to catch your breath, I'll give you a few minutes. So there were two candidates who could not come down, but as per the bylaws, they gave me a 350-word statement. So I will be, we have one more. You mind grabbing a chair table? Unfortunately, we have more number of people presenting and less number of people attending, so that's...
Yeah, but you're on our turn.
That's true. You have the advantage. We don't know our way back to the shuttle without you guys, so it's okay.
That's okay, well, make sure you get lost in the bar before you reach the shuttle.
Okay.
Which is open today, by the way.
All right.
Well, I'll quickly take a few minutes to read these two statements. By the time I give them time to catch their breath, and then I'll go down with them and give them time for their introduction, and then we'll go for the 5-minute pitch and the questions, okay? So the first statement is from Steve Bugma. He is running for the Internal Affairs Officer, and his statement reads as follows. I'm currently writing an exam worth 35% of my grade. I'm only allowed to write 350 words, so while I must be concise, I urge you to watch the previous debate and to contact me for further information. My platform is as follows. Point number 1, maintenance and preservation of the previous Internal Affairs Officer's efforts. Point number 2, team building within PGSS itself. While not the most seductive campaign point for voters, without making efforts to increase cohesion and interpersonal collaborations of my own team, the events will not be their best. This is accomplished through migrating communications to Slack applications, which provides statistics on the team's effectiveness. My opponent thinks this isn't necessary, but since my implementation of Slack with my neuroscience committee, we have seen a massive improvement in operations. Point number 3, advertising and integration. In order to increase the quality and attendance of our events, we must better cater to members, including Macdonald campus. Unlike my opponent, I don't believe most social media is the answer to this. And oversaturation of social media sacrifices the compromise between being annoying and being outspoken. I've been an event coordinator for almost 8 years, nearly a third of my life. I myself had to learn this the hard way. A simple online hub where associations can see a list of events with embedded links by their departments and PGSS is enough to increase attendance. It sounds overly simplistic, but this is what I have done with my neuroscience committee, and even my opponent recognizes that PGSS events are largely made up of neuroscience students. While the idea is to expand on this initiative beyond neuroscience and beyond the downtown campus, I feel like my strategy has already proved itself an effective one. Point number 4, lastly, network and support. Concerning Macdonald campus, this point is likely most relevant. Networking to initiatives outside Macdonald campus can be exceedingly difficult without increased support. Whether negotiations need to be made to provide MCGSS with more money, or if my campus students want more PGSS-sponsored events, this is something that I can strive for. Steve Bugma for Internal Affairs Officer. The next statement is from Thomas Colburn. He is running for Academic Affairs Officer. His statement reads as follows. First of all, I would like to extend my appreciation to everyone who was able to make it to the debates. And I would like to wish the best of luck to all the PGSS candidates who will be speaking today. I sincerely regret not being able to be in attendance. However, my obligations as a TA conflicted with today's scheduling. While it is unfortunate that I could not be here in person, I hope that through these words I can convey why I should be the next Academic Affairs Officer for PGSS. Over the past year, I have represented PGSS on the Council of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies and on the Senate Academic Policy Committee. I have also been the president of my PGSA as well as its representative on the PGSS Council. Given that these committees and deliberative bodies fall under the mandate of the Academic Affairs Officer, I am well suited to take over the responsibilities of the position. Additionally, I am well versed in the requirements of the position from having been in constant communication with the current Academic Affairs Officer. My experience and knowledge will ensure that there will be an exceptionally smooth transition period, allowing me to begin representing the interests of PGSS members from day one. I recognize that many on MAC campus are concerned with PGSS's ability to adequately advocate for their interests. As Academic Affairs Officer, I will do everything in my capacity to ensure that MAC campus has a voice within the McGill community. One of my primary goals as Academic Affairs Officer will be to ensure that communication occurs between the PGSS executives and the rest of the PGSS community, so that all members of PGSS can have their interests and concerns adequately addressed. This will involve opening direct lines of communications between the Academic Affairs Officer and the various PGSA representatives, as well as ensuring that I am readily accessible to you. In this way, I will ensure that my actions on your behalf are responsive and sensitive to your concerns. Thank you for your time and consideration. Now we'll move on and allow these two candidates 2 minutes to give their introduction, and then we'll rate once again.
Hi everyone, my name is Hocine Slimani. I'm running from External Affairs Officer position. I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher at McGill in the psychology department doing decision-making neuroscience. And I decided to run for External Affairs Officer position because I'm interested in the political side of student concerns. I guess I'll wait for my 5-minute statement to tell you what I plan to do.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for coming. My name is Jacob. I'm currently the External Affairs Officer at PGSS. I'm a bilingual Montrealer who did a DEC in Health Sciences at Dawson. I then left the province to go study at Mount Allison University in New Brunswick. I did an undergraduate degree in biology. I am now doing a PhD in experimental surgery on hip fracture treatments. I'm running for the position of Secretary General. If you guys have any questions about my personal background, you can ask me later, but I'll be going into my portfolio details in a minute.
All right, so now we'll go one by one with each candidate. They'll get 5 minutes to give their pitch, and once they are done, then it is open for you to ask them any questions to that specific candidate. Once we finish off this entire routine, then the forum will be open to ask simple questions to any of the candidates or a general question to all of the candidates. So let's start off with Matthew.
All right, so what I want to accomplish next year as Financial Affairs Officer, I've really summed it up into 4 key points of my platform that I want to accomplish. The first one is increase the financial transparency of the PGSS. The second one is the creation of an ethical investment policy. Third, I want to develop the sponsorship activities of the PGSS. And 4, I want to increase the support for our PGSAs. I'll now go through each point and elaborate on them. With regards to financial transparency of the PGSS, I don't know if you've gone on the website recently, but you can't find the budget, the most recent audited financial statements from 2011. There's no breakdown of where all the students' money is going, and I think it's very important that students be aware of what they're spending money on, or the money that they're giving to us, what we're spending it on. Students have the right to know how we're utilizing their funds and what we're doing with it. So increasing the financial transparency of our organization is very, very important, and I will strive as Financial Affairs Officer to make sure that we are as transparent as possible by regularly posting on our website updated budgets, fund balances, minutes from the Committee on Monetary Affairs, the updated audits, and just keep students as informed as possible about where their money is going. With my seat on the Board of Directors, if I am elected to be position of Financial Affairs Officer, I will also work with the Secretary General to make sure that our Board of Directors is as transparent as possible. Because right now you can't go and see any minutes from those meetings or anything like that. So that's something that definitely needs to be improved upon on our side to give students as much information and background as possible. My second point is the creation of an ethical investment policy. SMU does have investments. Like in this current budget, there's about $6,000 that PGSS has. Did I say SMU?
Yeah, you said so.
Sorry, I mean PGSS. I was thinking about SMU because I've been involved there before. PGSS does have investments. And this year, the PGSS has invested about $6,000. But we have no idea where that money is going. There's no regulations as to what kind of industries and companies the PGSS can invest in. So by creating this ethical investment policy, this would be giving guidelines and regulations as to where we can actually invest this money to make sure that our students' money and the corporation's money is going towards industries and companies that align with our mandates. The reason I was thinking about SMU is that SMU does have a similar policy. They have an ethical investment policy, which is what I'm basing this off of, that regulates where they can spend their money. So I would be working with them to see how that worked well for them and what we can potentially improve on and create one that works for the PGSS. My third point of developing the sponsorship activities of the PGSS, when I look at the PGSS and all the events and activities that we run, I see a wealth of untapped sponsorship opportunity. A lot of the times we're paying directly out of our budget or getting students to foot the bill, but we can do a lot more to get a lot of things for free and even get compensated and paid for a lot of our activities. By increasing our sponsorship revenue, I think that can really free up a lot of resources within our society and really lessen the burden on us and on our students for all of our events and activities. The way I want to accomplish this is by creating either a sponsorship commissioner that would be tasked directly with getting sponsorship for the society and our events, or creating a sponsorship committee that will work under the financial affairs officer. I'm not sure exactly which avenue would be the best, but that's a discussion that I look forward to having next year with my fellow executives and counselors. My final point is increasing the support for our PGSAs. I've been meeting with a lot of different PGSAs this past week and last week as well, and a lot of the feedback that I've heard is that the relationship between PGSS and PGSAs is basically we just hand them a check twice a year for their out of the Student Life Fund, and that's about it. But I think with the knowledge and the expertise that everybody in PGSS has, I think we can offer a lot more support to our PGSAs to make sure that they're able to offer the best services possible to their students. What I mean by this is that I've spoken to a few departments that have no idea really how to apply for funds or how to actually structure their own budget or really what they're able to do under the PGSS and within the PGSS. So I want to create a quarterly financial roundtable that would bring together all the VP finances or financial affairs officers of all the different PGSAs along with representatives from the PGSS where we can explain to them where the PGSS money is going. So again, financial transparency, we can present them the budget, update them on which funds are currently available and which ones they can apply to and help them with any questions they may have. But also considering that all these different PGSAs they're all very similar, have similar structures, similar constraints, and they're all dealing with the same problems when it comes to finances. So by grouping these people together and having just open discussions about what certain PGSAs are doing, what's going well, what's going wrong, I think a lot of people will be able to use this crowd knowledge to improve the way their own PGSA runs their operations financially. In order to keep all the VP finances updated on everything as well, I want to create a monthly financial newsletter that will be sent directly to them that keeps them updated on all the different deadlines for the funds, the balances for the funds, and anything else that might be relevant to help them run their operations. So these are the 4 key points that I want to work on. I look forward to discussing with you guys during the question period if you have any questions about my points or anything that you think that we could be doing better or any other suggestions that you might have. Thank you.
So before I allow you to ask any questions, just to inform you that there are 3 candidates who filed the nominations to run for the Financial Affairs Officer's position. One is Matthew, right here. The second one is Rani Chera. She hasn't shown up for the first debate either, and I haven't heard from her at all. The third is Chris Leaks.
It's a him.
It's a him? Okay, I'm not aware of that, because Rani is like a typical female name as far as I'm concerned, but I apologize, I stand corrected. Finally, it's Chris Leaks. And he did give his initial statements, which are available on the PGSS website, but he did not show up for the first debate either, and they haven't communicated to me whether they still want to run for the elections or not. So these are the 3 people, so I open the floor to you if you have any questions for Matthew.
Marcus?
For Mac campus, there were some issues with us getting our student life funds, and especially the breakdown. Do you know how that process would work on the PGSS, and if there's a way to improve information on how our SLFs should be broken down at the PGSS level?
So I met with Javid before this meeting to get all the background information, because I know there has been a lot of issues going on with the Mac campus finances. And my current understanding of the situation is that MCGSS is getting student life funds, but that's being distributed down to all your departments, correct? So you guys are getting that money, but you're just not getting as much money as you used to be getting.
But there was also delays in us getting the PGSLFs,
Okay.
and the breakdowns weren't actually the proper breakdowns.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the information that we, go ahead.
Yeah, what he's referring to is that the amount of money that should go to each department is not being made clear to us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're like, how much money should we give bioresource? How much money should we get parasitology, biotechnology?
Yeah.
That's why we haven't received our full month for the fall semester yet, just because they haven't provided the proper amount. We just know the amount they gave us is way under what we should have gotten in terms of our full student body.
Okay. So the way that I'm not in the position yet, so I don't have access to all the information, but my understanding of this is that McGill provides the PGSS with a list of emails and all the students within our members of the PGSS, and from that, the financial affairs officer goes through and finds all the students that belong to Mac campus, and you get that number. So if there's 700 students that are here, you would get the portion of money from 700 students going to you. But as far as the breakdown from each different department, I believe that would be available as well to the financial affairs officer. The financial affairs officer would not be able to share those emails with you, but I assume it would be possible to give you a breakdown of how many students are in each department. And if you're not getting that already, I'm not sure why. I think it would be possible to get, and I would definitely try to get that to you guys. So that would help you guys a lot, I think. You look like you have a question.
Yeah, I have one. On top of having issues with figuring out who's in what department, PGSS has a history of being extremely slow at making payments, and not just to PGSS, also reimbursing students when they do expenses.
Yeah.
When you pay for an event on your credit card and you're waiting for a reimbursement check, it's nice that the check takes less than a month to come, because then your interests start kicking in, and some students are glad to put stuff in their credit card to help the society, but if you pay interest on it, it's not becoming fun.
Mm-hmm.
So would you have an idea of how you could increase the speed of check making at the PGSS level?
So I definitely sympathize with that. I am still waiting for a check from the PGSS myself, so I definitely agree that things need to be going a bit faster. I don't know exactly what the internal procedure is within the financial affairs officer to actually get these checks out, so I can't really say what I can improve since I don't know the current process. But once I am into office, I have heard this complaint a lot from a lot of students. This is something that definitely needs to be looked at. I will be reviewing the procedure for reimbursements and to see if we can make it a lot faster. But right now I don't have an answer for you because I don't know exactly how it's happening. But I definitely understand the concern. It's something that I want to look at once I'm in office.
So I also have issue with the Board of Governors being super secretive.
Yeah.
What do you think happens there? Because from essentially I've got no idea what happens in that boardroom other than a lot of PGSS actions need to be approved by the Board of Governors, even though it's the only elected people in there is the Secretary General and the Finance Affairs Officer.
So you mean the Board of Directors of the PGSS, the Board of Governors at the McGill?
Yeah, sorry, Board of Directors of PGSS.
Yeah.
So do you have ideas of how you would open that up and what sort of resistances you may meet if you try and open up that room if they haven't considered opening it up before?
So normally these meetings should be open unless you move to a confidential session. So I don't think right now they're advertised properly, but that's something that I would want to look at with the Secretary General. Can we advertise these meetings a bit more? Because yes, there are confidential issues that are brought up here most of the time, but there's a lot of the things that can be public as well. So by, I think, advertising these meetings to students and letting them know that they're happening, interested students like yourselves could come and watch these meetings. A lot of the things that happen at the Board of Directors happen through committees. So there's a committee on legal affairs, a finance committee, and an HR committee. So I believe that those committees would not be open to the public. I may be wrong, but we can look at that. But the board meetings themselves should be open, and they just need to be advertised properly. Did I answer your question, or do you still have a follow-up?
I'm just trying to think how to word my next question.
Yeah.
I have a quick one, I guess.
Yeah.
So I believe that previous financial affairs officers were very dedicated to the concept of balancing the budget. How do you feel about usage of grad student money? And do you prioritize balancing budget, improving relationships with student life funds or student associations? Does that involve a restricted budget?
Restricted in what sense? What do you mean?
In terms of usage of money, is balancing the budget one of your main priorities, I guess?
Well, balancing the budget is always important. You don't want to be borrowing from the future. Essentially, you don't want to be having. You don't want to have a society that's in debt. One of the good things that I'm optimistic about going into my term is that the legal case with the Canadian Federation of Students is now finally over. So I know a lot of the PGS money has been going towards fighting that legal case. A lot of the expenses in budgets for future years had been allocated towards those legal expenses and fighting that case. But now that those expenses are no longer necessary, we do have a lot more money to play with. And in my mind, the primary responsibility and purpose of the PGSS is to look out for our students. So whatever we can do that can offer additional services or support or activities to our students, I think that's the number one priority for us as an executive and us as a society. And at that point, it just comes down to saying, what can we offer them? Is it feasible financially for us to offer these things to students? But of course, students are number one in my books.
Any other questions?
Building off that, if you're given a situation between hosting a student event and having a private Thompson House event that will bring in a lot of revenue, what would you choose and how would you justify your actions?
That's a good question. I'd have to discuss that with my fellow executives. But there's nights where there's nothing happening in the ballroom. So first of all, trying to find a compromise to try to accommodate both events. But again, I still think students should have priority. It is a student space. I understand the need for extra revenue, but our purpose is to offer services to students, and I would be leaning towards offering it to students. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Right, so let's move on to the next candidate. We will go down on this side of the table and let Jacob, who's running for the position of Secretary General, to give his 5-minute pitch. And then we'll have questions for him, and I'm sure you might have a lot of questions for him too.
So as Secretary General, there are many things that I want to get involved in, and what I'm going to be proposing right now is not everything. Just want you guys to know that I have many interests, and I would continue working on the projects I've been working on this year that I have not completed, and as well as many other backroom affairs that we don't hear about very often. But the main 4 points that I'd like to discuss with you today are the following. The first is related to graduate student spaces. So McGill University is currently planning on expanding its campus and maintaining its infrastructure. Now, any expansion of its campus, I would advocate for it to be done in a socially responsible manner. So for it to be the closest to our central campus as to avoid situations that have plagued the MAC campus students. So to kind of limit the sprawl of services across different areas of Montreal. So for that to be at the Royal Victoria Hospital, of course, if that's financially feasible. Also for any expansion or maintenance to promote sustainability, so to be moving towards the carbon neutral objective of McGill University, and for any, again, expansion or infrastructure maintenance to facilitate accessibility for those with disabilities. So there are many issues with our campus that need to be addressed, and accessibility and sustainability are two big ones. The second point on my campaign portfolio is a platform is fostering a culture of innovation at PGSS. So this would continue on the work done by the current Secretary General, Victor Frankl, to create more networking and professional development opportunities within Thompson House and a variety of PGSS services. So PGSS is a great resource of multidisciplinary students that can come up with solutions to the problems that we face as a society, and we should make use of this knowledge and this multidisciplinary group to develop professional opportunities and innovation projects for our communities. So that's involving creating funds for students, organizing hackathons, startup weekends, ideation, marathons, what have you, really fostering a culture of innovation to increase the number of networking and professional development opportunities. My third point is related to international students. So as External Affairs Officer, I've been exposed to a variety of issues, and I'd be interested in working on graduate student retention post-graduation. So a lot of students want to stay in Montreal, so we would help to create services and resources to help them, and also work with the government to create a tax credit for students that do stay in Montreal. So tuition is significantly higher for graduate students, international graduate students, and that money can be returned to them if they stay in Quebec and contribute to the economy through a tax credit. Another thing is offering them access to buy into the RAMQ, which would be a cheaper option for international students compared to private insurance. The third point is just working with graduate students, international graduate students, to ensure that their issues are brought to the table. The fourth point on my platform is mental health on campus. I think that there is a need to increase the number of services, the capacity of these services, the awareness of these services, but beyond this, as a member of Senate, I think there's an opportunity to advocate for mental illness prevention. We can change the curriculum, change education so that students don't feel as stressed and have more flexibility in their studies, as to avoid completely the occurrence of mental illness in the student population. So more experiential learning opportunities, more flexibility, and a variety of innovative approaches to easing the student burden. Many other interests. I'd be happy to answer your questions. I know what the question, yeah. So open the floor to
Okay, great. So if you have any questions for Jacob, please go ahead.
I guess it's an anecdotal question. My roommate is just applying for her RAMQ. So she went in to get the health card, and they only spoke French to her. Like, she could speak French, but she was saying there were other people there who only spoke English, and English was their second language. So they would speak to them in English, and they would speak them back in French only. And there were signs that saying this is a French-speaking place of business. If students, international students in particular, if they're going to buy into the RAMQ, would that be through McGill, or would they have to independently go and attempt to navigate this system? Or am I completely wrong? Like, is it just this one bad instance?
No, there is a language issue in Quebec, and the thing is that there are laws that protect the rights of employees in Quebec to only speak French to their customers, clients, patients, what have you. But there are certain instances where it's done with bad faith. Instances where the individual could speak French, could speak English, but just simply doesn't because of arrogance. And I think that barrier, that language barrier, or that cultural friction can be alleviated by addressing specific instances. So there was a case in front of Thompson House this year where a construction worker would not give safety warnings in English to an international student. And that puts our student body at risk. And for a situation like that, we had a message relayed to the city contractor, and the message was sent. And warnings for the safety of our membership need to be communicated, whether it's French or English or Mandarin or whatever, it needs to be passed on. And it's their responsibility to ensure that their signage is understood. as to who would take care of the buy-in is very strategic and would need to be decided on between the different associations that would lobby for this. So through the QSU, a strategy would, or ABEC or other federations, a strategy would be developed to propose to the government. And I am not savvy enough to know who on the matter to know who would be best, and I would not want to speak on the matter because I could be wrong. To facilitate it, I would like it to be through McGill. What is possible, I can't tell right now. And what would be best, big picture-wise, I can't tell you.
Any other questions?
Sure. You mentioned campus expansion as something you want to work on, but have you put a thought in the other elephant in the room, deferred maintenance, and all those lovely crumbling buildings that we're going to kill someone soon? What's your view of deferred maintenance, and when McGill's currently using its $400 million loan?
Yeah, so with $1.3 billion of deferred maintenance, it's a serious issue. And the biggest issue is, again, with the safety of our members. When you have biology labs that don't have proper ventilation systems or other safety issues, that's a huge issue for us. And the thing with balancing expansion and maintenance, I think it's they both go together. There's going to be a big movement of labs from one building, from different areas to others, and so you can't speak of one without speaking of the other, because while they'll be maintaining some buildings, they'll be moving the labs to the Royal Vic or another building. And so you can't really speak of one without speaking of the other. But of course, maintenance and upkeep of current spaces is the highest priority. But there are other areas such as graduate student offices, areas to practice your religion, areas for daycares that are in need, and we just don't have the space, even with maintaining everything that we currently have. Even maintaining everything that we currently have is not viable. A lot of what we own is heritage and will not do for what we need it to become. We cannot renovate a lot of the buildings on Peel Avenue, so those will be sold off. A lot of auxiliary buildings will be sold off. So where deferred maintenance can't accomplish our goals, a campus expansion is needed. So there's a lot of cross discussion.
Follow-up question, if I may suggest something to try and do next year. There's various classes of expenses that can be done in McGill in terms of facilities. One of them, some of them are academic, some of them are research. One of them is called cosmetic improvements. And sadly, this includes the piping and the electricity and all of that jazz for eye wash stations and showers in labs. And because cosmetic improvements are frozen, when you have a lab that's not up to code and doesn't have an eye wash station, a lab is not allowed to install it, and you can't install that on an NSERC grant, because NSERC doesn't allow for it. So we currently have labs that are just unsafe for our grad students. And if you could push to have at least safety items moved out of cosmetic improvements and put into a safety box, so that we can spend money on it and get safety labs, that would be nice.
And as
So
a follow-up to that, there was a question, heated question at the last debate on what happens in a situation where there's a sexual harassment or violence case where the administration isn't moving on, or there's certain situations where there's an injustice, but the known injustice, but the administration isn't moving on it. And I'm not scared to go to the press and make it as an announcement, as long as, let's say, the victim of the sexual acts is okay with it, or the stakeholders are okay with it. But for situations like that, where McGill is putting its students at risk by not investing and putting that as a priority, why not go to the media and make it a statement that we've pointed it out? I know sometimes they just can't do anything about it because they don't have the funds. but it will put more pressure on them, and maybe would put more pressure on donors. And I think there's different approaches to putting pressure on them. We'll talk after. Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So your fourth point was to work on mental health. I'm just wondering what your ideas are for campus-specific concerns, because historically, like, all the student societies have been working on mental health, but the victories for Mac campus improvements have been done by Mac campus students. For example, God created his own seat for MCGSS on the mental health counseling board that got us more access to Evelyn over the summer, because there was no access before. I myself managed to help her get up to 4 days of campus time. So does your strategy involve reaching out, or how do you bring in those campus-specific concerns that you may not be aware of into your platform?
Proper advocacy, ensuring that your issues are heard, ensuring that we're there to hear them. One thing that I had spoken with you about in the previous conversation was being more present and just being out there to talk to students. So that's a way to be aware of the concerns. Now, how to address those issues, I think there are certain innovative or creative approaches that can be taken, such as collaborations with nearby institutions or telecommunication to network with a counselor. Am I answering your question? I'm going off of it.
Yeah. Well, you're going into a new area, but it's still relevant.
Cool. So I think that there's to be aware of them, just being more present and ensuring proper communications and representation on the different governing bodies, and then to ensure that you have access to the resources needed, advocate to the university as long as it's feasible for them to set up shop here. If it's not, then there are certain creative approaches that can be taken, such as collaborations with the neighbor, with the community, or telecommunications, or improving transport between the two campuses.
So it's still hierarchical, as in we'll report to you, because what I was getting at was the previous, or what we managed to get on campus done by us directly. So would there be potential for more of a collaborative approach versus hierarchical, where we report up and then you report it, versus bringing us onto those discussions?
I think that your interest in collaborative advocacy is coming from a lack of trust from previous executives not bringing your issues to the table. And I think that democracy is all about ensuring that your representation is for all members. And as your representative to the Senate and the Board of Governors, I would ensure full representation of all members on campus. But areas that you feel need to be pushed on, we could definitely collaborate on. And that would be done through giving you a seat on different bodies. And for exactly which body you would want a seat on, again, back to the original communications, they need to be improved.
A follow-up comment, but not a question. Mental health is hugely important, and having services on your campuses is important. But don't forget that as a university, we send out a lot of our grad students to do research, be it like in this campus, biology in the Arctic or the tropics or wherever, or another department sending people to study abroad. And I've lived through it. I've had a hard time, but I know other students that suffered from depression or other issues when they were abroad doing their research, not in their usual safety net. And currently there is sweet fuck all in terms of mental health for a student who's, let's say, in Iqaluit doing research, polar bears or whatever.
So yeah, yesterday we had a Board of Governors open session with different student groups, and having started a few groups on campus, attended activities, and yesterday was a nice reminder that there are so many great groups on campus, that offer services that the university doesn't. And there are opportunities for collaboration between them. So something like the Nightline could collaborate with the Peer Support Center, and I know they have in the past, but for something like you're talking about is perfect, where having the infrastructure of the Nightline, where there's the telephones and the call centers in place, but then the Peer Support Center could share their mentorship or their counseling services, or their peer support services, to create a sort of remote counseling or remote peer support service. With the advent of virtual reality and different telecommunications tools, I think that remote peer pressure, peer support would definitely be something that is going to be achievable in the coming years.
And we follow up about the peer support network downtown. Are you finally planning on also supporting the peer support service on Mac campus? Because we use it, and it's not getting any help from PGSS.
Yes, no, absolutely. And since it's a student service, we would make sure that the funds are available for them to have what they need to function, and the support, the HR support to function. And I've heard of your peer support network here, but the MCSS wasn't even aware that. So yesterday, the Peer Support Center presented, then someone from MCSS asked, well, why aren't you out at the MAC campus? And so the Peer Support Center, we are, is just not great at the moment. So of course, you guys may have the infrastructure, but giving you guys the tools needed would facilitate it. I went in a little circle there.
Any other questions for Jacob? Okay. So I'll move next to Hocine, who's running for the External Affairs Officer. So if you would like to go ahead and give your 5-minute statement.
Alright, so as an External Affairs Officer, if I'm elected, well, my role, I think, would be to, well, first is representation through student federations, and on that topic, FERC dissolved, and there's a huge fund, a huge amount of money that needs to be redistributed to its members. So, so my role would be, with other representatives of different student societies, would be to assure that these funds are correctly redistributed and that there's transparency. Then on the matter of representation as well, there's since FERC is not there anymore, there are two associations. There's QSU and AVEC. Jacob has been observing the two federations for a year and a half now, if I'm correct. And we can file motions by just being observers, but of course, if we want them to work more actively on issues that concern McGill, we need to be part of one of them, make a choice. So my guess would be that by the beginning of next academic year, so in September, we'd have to make a move on that, whether we choose QSU or AVEC to affiliate with. Okay, about political things that affect campus. I'm advocating for a total paradigm change in how we see graduate studies, but these things take time. They will extend over other external affairs officers' mandates, but I hope to set the milestones for them. First, we have the issue of postdocs at the moment, which, in my opinion, comes late because the law was voted 2 years ago and passed. Passed a year. It affected the universities a year ago, and it's only now that McGill handles it. For example, in Concordia, they started applying the law from June 1st as mandated by the law. So For those who are not aware, postdocs have had a switch in status, which causes a huge misunderstanding. There's a lot of issues that came out of it. First, postdocs are not treated equally. Some lie under PGSS, others lie under AMUR, so the Union for Research Employees. Those guys just saw their income, take-home money reduced by 1/3, and that also affects their PIs because they have to all of a sudden pay 20% more of their salary for all the benefits, parental plans, and so on, pension plans. So it's a situation that is not great for a lot of people. Some postdocs, international students who came here for, let's say, a 2 or 3 years postdoc, got reduced, their contracts reduced by half, just because their PI just can't pay for the entire period because it needs to pay more. So that's one example. There are tons of examples on why I think this is poorly handled, and it underlies a deeper issue about graduate studies. Is that when we reach the PhD level, a lot of countries in the world decided that the moment you're... So yeah, the postdoc issue I think is really badly handled. There's an unfair treatment for the different types of postdocs. Now there are 4 categories of postdocs, so everyone is lost. Sometimes some people's status changes from month to month depending on where their income comes from and in which percentages. So on that topic and concerning PhD students especially, I'd like to import more of a Scandinavian model on how we study. I'll be able to answer more questions about this if you want to. Well, also for all graduate students, for example, psychology students complain that their internships, they are bound to do a lot of internships that they're not paid. That's also something that does not make sense. Doctors get paid when they do their residence. Why not psychologists, for example? They've been on strike for a while now, or in pressure. They use pressuring. I don't know how to say that in English. So, moyen pression. And pressure tactics. Yeah, pressure tactics. Thanks. So that's something that will lie under the paradigm change portfolio. Yeah, and then there's the health insurance thing in Scandinavia. I was there. I went to study in Scandinavia, and you get appointed. Well, you get a family doctor the moment you get there, and you have all the rights that any Dane, for that matter, gets. And we're far from it here. A lot of international students have to go through private insurances that cost a lot of money, on top of their student fees that are really expensive. So through the different federations, trying to convince the government, finding means to make it easier for international students to have a healthier life here. I think it's enough.
Thank you. Any questions from you?
Yeah.
You want me? Okay. First off, you sound like you do, and you did speak about moyen pression, but you didn't actually say, just making sure you are fluent in French, right?
Yeah, it's my mother tongue.
Great.
Well, then I'm glad you're asking, because that means my English is...
You're in I'm just making sure you're good in French, because you need that as an external, and you cannot be an external without French.
No,
It's
I
just
know.
impossible.
That's...
It's been done before, but no, man.
It was done for you.
I didn't say it.
Second question. On the provincial line, PGSS, and actually every student society, mainly relies on federations, but sometimes there's issues that affect the campus more specifically. that are really more on the municipal side. So what's your view of the relation you can have with the various cities and arrondissements and towns that McGill is dealing with, and the relation you could build with them?
Do you have any specific issue in mind?
Yeah, I'm thinking things like the digging up of the whole downtown campus through the city of Montreal and the arrondissement, and how that fucks up regularly. Or issues that can arise in Saint-Anne-de-Bellevue, because we're not in Montreal. I don't know if you've noticed, you're not in Montreal City here. It's a different city.
Yeah.
And sometimes our bylaws are completely different because it's a different city. It has its own bylaws, and it can bring issues. So how you would navigate the municipal scene.
Okay, so your question is, from what I understand from your question, is that some laws or regulations that affect the downtown campus might not be affecting Mac campus the same way because the rules around here are different.
Yeah.
And how I would deal with all of this.
Well, my question is more general. Are you planning to work with the municipality at all and not
Yeah,
forget
of course,
it
why
exists?
not? I mean, if we're willing to work with the provincial government and the federal government, then there are a lot of issues that affect McGillians on campus, whether it's my campus or downtown campus, that are directly related to municipal issues. And it's not a level of government that can be ignored, especially with all the construction work happening at the moment. Public safety, but McGillian's safety as well. And all sorts of events that I know you suggested to our fellow students who are on my campus to live here because it's easier for them. But there are a lot of activities around that the city implements and promotes, and it would be nice to assure proper communication with the help of the internal affairs officer in order to make sure that not only students on my campus are safe, but while going downtown. Because if you're not aware of the environment that is constantly changing right now, then you should know different things to be safe, but also all the activities that my campus students could benefit from without, and that could have a great impact on their mental health as well.
And my last question is more personal. I've done a lot of student exec jobs that were on a campus, like finance, internal, things of the sort, that involve being very involved on your campus. But the best externals I've ever seen were never on campus.
Yeah.
Because that's how you know that an external is good. You don't see them. They're somewhere else doing external relations.
Yeah.
And one issue with that is it tends to be very difficult for your classes, your research, when you go away and do your job well, and it might evolve positions around the table. If you do your position well, you're the one that's going to get the most for it.
Yeah.
And your research and your productivity as a researcher. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I would. I'm glad you brought it up because it's one of my strengths. I'm still working with people from. I did my PhD traveling 3 countries: Denmark, Italy, and Belgium, and Montreal, of course. So 4. I'm used to working remotely. I have a driver's license, so that wouldn't be a struggle to drive around the province. And I'm a postdoc. I'm not a PhD or master's student anymore, so I don't have a boss. You know, my PI is, well, he's my supervisor, but then again, I have my own project. So if I decide to delay by a week my project because of student congress, then it's my thing, because I'm working on my career, not my professors necessarily. So no, I don't think it is an issue.
You had a question?
Sure. I have a question about public transit. So currently, if you're older than 26 or 25, I guess,
25.
You no longer qualify for a student bus pass.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for that, or to monitor
Yeah,
And how does that apply to postdocs?
So it's theoretically already changed, but the law has passed. So the problem is it's not implemented yet, because that's going to be implemented along with the destruction of STM and AMT and creating that lovely metropolitan thing that's never going to work, but that they're going to try really hard. So we'll see in a few months.
I thought it was implemented in January.
Well, not officially, it's in the process of implementation. But it's not.
January 2017.
Is it? It's
I
already.
was told that when I was running. But I've asked and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I've asked and they didn't know what I was talking about, so the memo may have not.
Okay, because so that's when we passed the law on the Agence Métropolitaine de Transport that.
How about we keep this thing for discussion after we are done?
Yeah, we can talk about this.
And we can talk more about this thing.
Alright,
So-
to answer your question, I would say it would be nice to implement some big C stations here to travel downtown. No, I'm joking.
You do it, it's 3 hours.
You'd be healthy. No, to be on the more, go ahead.
I have something on this, but forget Big C, that's a City of Montreal thing.
Yeah,
Implementing it in another city, that's not, they're gonna fight. But something you could work on that would be awesome, Communauto, Car2Go,
yes,
related
that's exactly
things
where.
that are not municipal and are private, even if some of them are non-profit, some of them are not, might have stations here which could be really useful.
That's
For students
exactly
to
where I was
understand
going.
Hyperloop.
We
We could stick a Hyperloop system between my campus and downtown.
teleportation as well. Yeah, that's exactly what I made that joke on Big C, because there are other ways of sharing stuff, car sharing, for example. The problem with these companies like Communauto and Automobile and so on is that they see their interest before ours. And in Montreal, for example, the moment you step out, you eccentric to the 40 highway, the Communauto stations are not there anymore. So I can try, but that's the only promise I can make, because if they're not willing to put up stations outside of the 40, then convincing them from doing it here would be a huge challenge. However, I'm pretty sure that there are ways we can introduce car sharing within the Mac campus students or the McGill students who have to travel away from the downtown campus or inside. So, and if I'm not mistaken, Mina has been working on this already. So, that would be an avenue for me.
I have one last suggestion for your portfolio.
Yeah.
Most of us grad students in McGill do our research and connect with other people in McGill, sometimes connect with people in other English universities in North America, but we tend not to connect very well with our sister departments in Francophone universities. Let's say for my campus, it would be at Université Laval, their agriculture and agri-food faculty does a lot of very similar research, and we could gain from having more mingling between grad students of those two faculties. And I'm sure that's true in every department. There has to be, sometimes it would be Université de Montréal, or so it's just a suggestion out there, but working on more relations between grad students of departments doing similar things across Quebec, so that people can mingle more and exchange ideas, and maybe it could turn out with great scientific collaborations, and it could be fun.
Yeah, that is something that Jacob has been working on in the last year for everything that is related to innovation. So more networking and so on. I'm pretty sure that we can use his experience to help me out into installing a similar thing for pure academic stuff.
I can offer an example of what neuroscience has been doing. There's the Neuro Symposium that started last year as a collaboration between, I believe it was McGill, Sherbrooke, and UDM as a conference to bring students together. And that's now been expanded to other universities in Quebec. So I know Laval is very involved in it this year. So I think departments are very aware of these opportunities, and it's already starting to happen. So more support from PGSS for these initiatives would be something very interesting.
All right, any other question? Just before we move forward, I just request the candidates to refrain from speaking when it's not your turn. The platform will be open because just to give everyone a fair advantage, that a fair share of the time. Okay, so we'll be moving on next to Academic Affairs Officer. So we have two candidates running for that position. One is Shufeng, who's right here with me. So I'll give her 5 minutes to put her campaign message across to you guys. And just to be fair to the other candidate who could not come here because of his academic commitment, I will once again read his 350-word statement really quick so that you can have a comparative view. I will not be able to answer questions on his behalf, but you're more than welcome to contact him or see the other debate which is there on YouTube.
Hi, good afternoon. If I am elected, I would like to address the following issues. The first issue is to improve the student feedback system. I will work with Miguel administration and PGSA representatives to build up a system in which everyone's feedback is taken seriously by the university and make the feedback procedure readily available, practical, and fully transparent. I will ensure that PGSS represents students' voice to the university. And the second issue is to provide more opportunities for the potential international students in Macdonald campus especially. I would like to work with the Miguel Administration Department and the International Student Office to launch a new project we call in Macdonald campus especially. We call Puri Miguel, a 1-year training program to help the potential international students to prepare to study at Miguel. This would greatly help them to bring more international students and increase the university income. And also, I would like to work with the skill set to offer more workshops and bring more academic activities in Macdonald campus. For example, we could to address the following issue: how to make public speech, how to manage your research project, and how to prepare your committee meeting and your PhD comprehensive exam. And the third issue is to improve the supervision, student salary, and the career plan. I would like to work with the CAPS Individual Development Plan Project, MyTAC, and other possible industry partners to bring more partnership from the industry side and help to coordinate graduate students' projects with the needs of the industries. This would allow students to make meaningful connection with the market and propel them for their future employment at the end of study. And I also would like to improve the management of a scientific research facility. As we all know, many students cannot fund the equipment for their research, while some important equipment only used by very few people because of ownership. And I would like to hold discussions to address the following issue: how to improve the management of research facility in a manner that would net full access to all the students who really need this facility, and try to find a solution for better management. And also, I would like, that's a question. That's the solution to answer your question. I would like to lobby university to negotiate with the STM that all the students should only pay student metro fees, regardless of the age. Because when you are master or your PhD students, of course, I will be over 25 years old. It's impossible I'm still under 25 years old to do my master or PhD. So then it's unfair because we are paid as students. We have to pay a lot of tuition fee, and we still have to pay a lot of transportation because we are students. And if this is not working, I guess it's very difficult. It's possible alternatively, PGSS can apply the all-pass enterprise membership program. That also can decrease 1 month is free, and it also I think it's 14% decrease the price of the regular bus. And lastly, I would like to lobby university to reduce the tuition fee during the thesis semester. As the master, or especially for the PhD student, after I finish my pre-done, I mean my comprehensive exam, I don't take any course. I'm just concentrate on my research and my thesis. During the thesis section, we are not supposed to pay the full tuition. Like University of Montreal, here I can give you an example. The tuition is when you are master student or PhD student, you pay $1,165 per semester. But when you doing the thesis, only 414.8 cents per thesis semester, because we are no longer taking any course. So it's unfair for us to pay full tuition. We should negotiate this. And thank you very much. Any questions?
I'll just read the statement of the other candidate who's running for the same position so that you have a comparative analysis, and then you can ask any questions to the candidate who's present here. So the candidate who's running for Academic Affairs Officer is Thomas Colburn, and his statement reads as follows. First of all, I would like to extend my appreciation to everyone who was able to make it to the debates, and I would like to wish the best of luck to all the PGSS candidates who will be speaking today. I sincerely regret not being able to be in attendance. However, my obligations as a TA conflicted with today's scheduling. While it is unfortunate that I could not be here in person, I hope that through these words I can convey why I should be the next Academic Affairs Officer for PGSS. Over the past year, I have represented PGSS on the Council of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies and on the Senate Academic Policy Committee. I have also been the president of my PGSA as well as its representative on the PGSS Council. Given that these committees and deliberative bodies fall under the mandate of the Academic Affairs Officer, I am well suited to take over the responsibilities of the position. Additionally, I am well versed in the requirements of the position from having been in constant communication with the current Academic Affairs Officer. My experience and knowledge will ensure that there will be an exceptionally smooth transition period, allowing me to begin representing the interests of PGSS members from day one. I recognize that many on MAC campus are concerned with PGSS's ability to adequately advocate for their interest. As Academic Affairs Officer, I will do everything in my capacity to ensure that MAC campus has a voice within the McGill community. One of my primary goals as Academic Affairs Officer will be to ensure that communication occurs between the PGSS executives and the rest of the PGSS community so that all members of PGSS can have their interests and concerns adequately addressed. This will involve opening direct lines of communication between the Academic Affairs Officer and the various PGSA representatives, as well as ensuring that I am readily accessible to you. In this way, I will ensure that my actions on your behalf are responsive and sensitive to your concerns. Thank you for your time and consideration. If you may have any questions for the candidate present here, please go for it.
I have a few. One, in your beginning speech, you said something that really worried me, that your position is not about politics.
Yeah, I'm not politics. I really want to be the voice of the student. I want to present students' voice. Why do you think the environment of students is so few? When I talk with people talk to students, most of students they don't want to. They say, oh, I have no interest. Sorry, I don't have any interest. Why? Because that means we are really not representing their voice. That's a big problem. Why is there so many students who want to drop from PGSS? Why? Do we think about that? We are not politics. We have to present their voice. We have to work for them. Whenever you pay the money to buy something, buy savers, you have to get the savers. The students think the same. It's marketing. So they pay you, and you have to offer the savers to them. If they pay us, they pay PGS, but if PGS don't give the savers what they need, what they want, of course they won't interested.
I'm going to rephrase this. Unsent. How in the world are you going to pass any policy for the benefit of grad students if you're not ready to do the backdoor politics with the admin people outside of committees, in person, in their offices to get something passed?
I'm not saying I'm not willing to deal with politics. I'm just saying I want to represent a student voice at my best. But if I have to do something, of course I have to do something.
I have a question. You mentioned more efficient, I guess, use of equipment and technologies.
Yeah.
How do you imagine that works in terms of liability? Say if HPLC machine is off warranty, and I come in and use it, and I break it, and it's not my lab that I'm using it. So I'm coming into your lab, and I accidentally break it, or I do something wrong. How do you imagine that sort of relationship is going to work?
So that's a very, very important issue. That's a really big issue. That's exactly happened. All the professors, especially in downtown, they think the equipment belongs to their lab. So only our labs people can use it. I think that's university can do it because we can put it like HPLC. It's so expensive equipment and also it's so important. We should put some common funding to buy that. It's not only one professor to buy it. It's all the professors, like maybe we put 5% from your funding, 5% from each professor, and then you buy the common equipment so everyone can use it. And also we need the technician, we need the support, we need to maintain this. We need a technician, especially for the HLTS, just to maintain them. Because that's the problem of McGill. They have a lot of very important, very advanced machine, but it's not maintained properly. So it ends up is broken, nobody uses it, or very, very few people have the access to use it.
So for current equipment that already exists, that's owned by one specific lab, how would you propose usage? Or are you talking more along the lines of future purchases should be shared between labs instead?
So in that case, I think there's 2 or 3 possible. I think 2 possible. One possible, if your supervisor is nice, can let people use, and then if the person broken, and then you should deal with the people. You say we can put some money together to repair it. That's right. And if I guess it's also difficult. And the other thing is it's completely broken, so it's no longer used. You can use the common funding to buy a new one. But that's a very important issue because I remember in my department there is the autoclave machine. You know the autoclave machine. The student put something on cannot be autoclaved. It's plastic. They put them, and then the plastic melt and completely broken that autoclave machine. Autoclave machine is not very expensive, but still, it's a big issue. And then finally, the department have to buy a new one.
So I remember at the beginning semester, Nick had a really hard time trying to recruit people to fill all the committees PGSS has members to sit on, and that's one of the roles of the academic affairs officer. What's your strategy to not only recruiting people to fill all the committees, but making sure they're really good people to fill the committees, or for the most important committees, you have really good people?
I think you first have to talk with them and know what they want, and know what's the strength, and know what's the weak point, and then you can make the judgment he or she is suitable or not. And the most important thing, I think, we have to make sure that we represent the students' voice. We really represent the students. And if they don't want to represent the voice, that means we need to work harder to make sure students' voice are represented to the university.
On that same question, I've been on appointments board. Most positions you will not have any applications.
Can you remove your...
Sorry, most positions you will not have any applications. Most cases, the applications you'll receive will be bullshit. There will be no text, there's no CV, no nothing. Their name, their department, and if you want decent people in committees, you'll have to hunt them down and find them. Do you have the network to find those people?
Yes. I work in my department as an ambassador person, and I also connect with another of a lot of research with their graduate students, and so we are thinking about it. That's why they encourage me to run the academic officer, because they said we really want someone really represent us.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, so we'll move to our last candidate who is here, running for Internal Affairs Officer. You have your 5 minutes, please start.
Hello again, finally it's my turn. So my platform mainly focuses on collaborations between PGSAs, between Mac campus, postdoctoral associations, and increasing awareness and outreach, and expanding, encouraging innovation and leadership. But instead of going in details about these points, I'll take these 5 minutes to discuss my ideas concerning Mac campus. So, although downtown and Mac are two halves of a single university, the only obvious markers of Mac campus's existence are the McGill Farmers Market on Thursdays in fall, and the shuttle bus, which most of the people have trouble finding due to construction. There have been initiatives by current and previous executive members and Mac campus reps to engage students on both campuses by organizing events. But most students don't bother finding about them, as they are not interested in visiting their non-native campuses due to geographic limitations, work restrictions, time restrictions because of the time it takes to travel. And also, current Internal Affairs Officer Meena has done a commendable job this year. I think all of you must be agreeing on that. And following on the path laid down by her, I'll continue bridging the gaps between the two campuses. We currently organize trips such as Cubic Carnival trip, apple picking event in the fall, and offer pickup services for students from the Mac campus. For events in downtown after 6 p.m. such as Halloween and Masquerade Ball, it's hard to organize a commute for students interested from Mac due to cost limitations. Being geographically separated makes things harder and results in a weaker connection between Mac and PGSS. But there's no denying the fact that Mac campus has a lot to offer. We can have events during daytime at Mac, and students should take advantage of the shuttle buses. Initiatives such as these are important because they provide occasions for downtown students to interact with Mac campus and participate in events which are not possible to hold in downtown. I would also try my best to be physically present in Mac campus as much as possible, so as to interact with campus staff to organize events and student volunteers whenever the situation demands. Mac campus in downtown should not feel like two mutually exclusive worlds, as this idea prevents students from exploring all that McGill has to offer. That being said, I understand there have been a lot of issues that graduate students at Mac have been facing this year and the previous years, which may or may not be in my capacity to solve during the term of being an Internal Affairs Officer if elected. But I'll continue offering my support to the Macdonald Campus Graduate Society and will definitely try to bridge the gap between the two. Macdonald Campus Graduate Society is doing an incredible job, which PGSS being physically separated cannot do, and I truly appreciate the efforts of each and every representative of Macdonald Campus. Things haven't been going so well in the past, but let's hope this is the year of change and graduate students at Mac Campus get what they deserve, and which is in the interest of them. Thank you.
The other candidate who's running for the same position of Internal Affairs Officer is Steve Bugma. I'll quickly read his statement. I'm currently writing an exam worth 25% of my grade. I'm only allowed to write 350 words, so while I must be concise, I urge you to watch the previous debate and to contact me for further information. My platform is as follows. Point 1, maintenance and preservation of the previous Internal Affairs Officer's efforts. Point number 2, team building. Within PGSS itself, while not the most seductive campaign point for voters, without making efforts to increase cohesion and interpersonal collaborations of my own team, the events will not be their best. This is accomplished through migrating communications to the Slack application, which provides statistics on a team's effectiveness. My opponent thinks this isn't necessary, but since my implementation of Slack with my neuroscience committee, we have seen a massive improvement in operations. Point number 3, advertising and integration. In order to increase the quality and attendance of our events, we must better cater to members, including Macdonald campus. Unlike my opponent, I don't believe more social media is the answer to this. An oversaturation of social media sacrifices the compromise between being annoying and being outspoken. I've been an event coordinator for almost 8 years, nearly a third of my life. I myself had to learn this the hard way. A simple online hub where associations can see a list of events with embedded links by their departments and PGSS is enough to increase attendance. It sounds overly simplistic, but this is what I have done with my neuroscience committee, and even my opponent recognizes that PGSS events are largely made up of neuroscience students. While the idea is to expand on this initiative beyond neuroscience and beyond the downtown campus, I feel like my strategy has already proved itself an effective one. Point 4. Lastly, network and support. Concerning Macdonald campus, this point is likely most relevant. Networking to initiatives outside Macdonald campus can be exceedingly difficult without increased support. Whether negotiations need to be made to provide MCGSS with more money, or if Mac campus students want more PGSS sponsored events, this is something that I can strive for. Steve Bukma for Internal Affairs Officer. If you have any questions for the candidate present here, you may ask right now. You don't get your 2 minutes and no rebuttals because the candidate is not present here himself. Any questions for the candidate? Yeah.
I've had comments from students downtown and who go to some of the PGSS events, like the Masquerade Ball, and they were saying how it can be very cliquey almost, or even like the Sugar Shack, where there's not as much interaction, and then some of the students from that campus, when they go to some of the MCSS-sponsored events, comment on how it's more inclusive and there's more communication. It may be a result of just that campus, everybody knows each other.
So I think that's the reason is because students come in groups. They normally have their own network of things that they come along. Definitely there can be something that can be done so that the students can interact with each other. We had during Halloween party we had the best costume event, best costume contest, and we can definitely improve on that and get feedbacks on the students only on what can be improved, because there's a lot of room for improvement in the events. So.
Any other questions?
I would have another question with a piece of advice. A good chunk of your role is planning events and making sure people attend and have fun and enjoy them. And publicizing those events can sometimes be a challenge.
Yes.
And especially at Mac. Facebook, Twitter, email newsletters are all cool and good and sexy and nice. But if they're not supplemented by word of mouth on this campus, no one will do. So when you publicize something, make sure you contact directly a few campus leaders out long, but people who are here that have a voice and can reach people, to make sure that they go around labs and say it in person, because then people will go, because they'll have seen it in the email that someone will have told them. If you just send emails or just use Facebook events, nobody will ever show up, because it just doesn't work.
Since my opponent had mentioned how like I'm a fan
you cannot rebut anything. You can give your own opinion. You cannot. Sorry.
So I'm a believer of social media. I believe like social media can drive the participation towards events, definitely. But I also believe that physically you have to be present. You have to show your physical presence to the members so that they know that you're there. And this year, like while campaigning, I met with students about PGSS, like talking to them about my position, and most of the times I got the answer like they are not aware of who PGSS is. So I think that's one of the issues which can be solved this year, which is in my platform about collaborating with different departments, and since we will have audience of their audience as well and our audience as well, and we can go physically. I feel going physically to the students. Till now, students were coming to us. I think it's time that we go to the students now. Yes, thank you.
Any further questions?
Yep, sorry, I'm just trying to word it correctly in my head. But one of the things we were discussing earlier was having MCGSS run, or because we were more familiar with who to contact people at that. One thing what Mina ended up having to do was she would give us part of her budget to run events.
Yeah.
Would that be something you'll be interested in doing or increasing?
Since I would be physically in downtown, I don't think I'll be the most I don't think I'll be making the decision of which events to organize here because you guys know the best about this. So definitely whatever works for both of us, and we'll definitely collaborate on that, even if that means sending the budget to you guys.
Budget for next year is being developed now, so.
Yes, I'm talking. Yeah, so I'm in touch with Nina as well about next year's event. So yeah, that is it.
Any further questions to the candidate? Good. So before I open the platform for any general discussion or comments and advice from your end or whatever the candidates would like to speak, I just wanted to make a couple of points here. The first thing was that this time the election debates, I'm taking them very seriously, and the candidates who are not participating without having any justified cause, a serious electoral violation action is being taken against them, be it in pecuniary terms or be it ousting them from the race altogether. So that is something which I have recommended to the elections committee. Now they're going to discuss and decide upon it, and we are going to publish it. I also opened this platform this time and gave opportunity to all candidates so that they could come forward and make their YouTube videos, which I myself participated in that. So that is there on the Facebook page. So I was really disappointed not to see many people over here, but I presume that in the past, these kind of debates at Macdonald campus have been cancelled because of no show from the candidates. And that was the reason why people did not show up, because they thought this event would be cancelled anywhere. But moving further with the right precedents we are going to set, I hope that you can use all those tools available online, or at least go down and talk to your membership that all information about these candidates is available online. They have their amazing platforms, their websites, which is also linked over there. Just go down and ask them to make a right choice so that you can have a very robust body in the upcoming session, and which can work effectively for the Macdonald campus as well as the students on the downtown campus. And if you have any suggestions, any concerns or questions about the elections, feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to address it. Now the floor is open. You can have as much discussion and debate with any of the candidates or all of them. So feel free.
I have a question for everyone.
Not me, yeah.
Yeah.
Not me, right?
It kind of involves you,
Sure.
but yeah. So in the email that announced this debate, could anybody point out the mistake that was made in it?
Sure.
Okay, the mistake that was made in it?
In the email that announced this event, this debate.
Is it because the spelling of Macdonald campus?
Okay, that was me. So that is just for me to blame, so not the candidates. So if I made a mistake, I apologize for that. And I stand corrected, but I would have really appreciated if you could send me an email at the same time. I would have sent another one correcting it.
Yeah, Sir William really didn't like the fact that he actually had a changed spelling when he got knighted.
Right.
So he actively wanted this spelling and not his old spelling, because he hated his family and disowned them. So it's really insulting to his memory to give him back his old spelling.
I cannot, like, it's too late to send a correction on that, but I would have really, if in the future, if you get any email from, at least from me, which has any sort of factual errors or such type of things, I would really appreciate, get back to me as soon as possible, and I would send another email with the correction.
I didn't get it. What was the mistake?
The spelling of Macdonald campus was wrong.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
McDonald.
It's MSC.
Yeah.
Oh, you wrote MC.
Well,
God,
honest mistake.
Yeah, it's a
Maybe
mistake on my
you
part.
can blame it on autocorrect.
Yeah, that's McDonald's on the O. It comes from the BMO.
It's a mistake.
That's where everybody went.
Yeah. Blame it on
You know someone's not
autocorrect.
from Mac when they mess up McDonald as a name and or ask you, so where's the seaweed? Kitty.
What?
The bar.
Oh.
People
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know how
yeah.
to pronounce it.
Name changes.
I was like, Kaylee?
Hmm?
I was gonna be like, you mean the Kaylee?
Yeah, Kitty, but people usually ask the seaweed.
Okay, so I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
Okay,
you got it right.
Alright, any other questions?
Seaweed, come on.
Happens.
No question?
Do you have ego?
I can say that for later.
I don't have one,
Okay.
but I should know.
I'll be gone.
So, I'm just wondering, what would your reaction be? So right now, MCGSS will be asking the student body on the topic of whether we should continue being part of PGSS or not. I'm wondering if a yes vote passes, what would your reaction be? Every yes vote is separate from
Point of
PGSS.
Are you asking only the candidates, or you're also asking
All of them.
Point of information, you're asking a question of what their opinion is on the matter. It's not a referendum disaffiliation question.
Or yeah, more of like I'm asking what the reaction would be if a yes vote was to go through. So it's not the question on the referendum if it should happen or not. It's more like how will you treat the results of it if
So it's a survey to assess the satisfaction of Max
Or
students
it's a
with
referendum
PGSS.
question.
It is a referendum
Yeah.
question. So if the vote is we don't want to be part of PGSS anymore, you won't be part of PGSS.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to go through procedures to split off. It's not enough. If that question passes, you would then, as MTGSS, would have to go through those procedures.
The question's worded as it doesn't have any dates in it.
Yeah.
So if the question passes, then we will go to the deputy provost's office, Jonathan Nordland, and go through those processes, then go through McGill finances, and then later get incorporated under Act 32, and then later seek accreditation through the Quebec laws. So it'll officially start the process if the referendum was to pass.
When is the date?
The referendum, it's March 30th, and I'm going to speak to you after that about having somebody from PGSS be there for the ballot counting.
So what's the
Do you want to have an online thing, or do you want to have a ballot?
Our constitution recognizes paper ballots, so our constitution says we do it by paper, and we brought it up with the current exec, and they said that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. I can coordinate with you, and we can talk about it.
So what's the reasons they want it?
That's
We
a
still
lot.
How much time do you have?
So-
We can have a cup of tea or lunch then.
Or
So-
multiple.
If the referendum passes, I hope that we still have events between Macdonald campus and downtown campus. So that won't change. Definitely, we can, as we are interacting right now, we'll definitely interact again. And I would support it definitely, and I think everyone else will be supporting it because since MCCS is operating on its own, I don't see any reason MCCGS cannot operate it on its own. So yes. But I hope that we continue our collaborations.
I think that there's so many discussions to be had before even talking about what our sentiment would be after the matter. As a current executive running for a second mandate, another mandate as Secretary General, I think that there are more efforts that could be put into restoring trust between the two organizations or between the two constituencies. And so before getting to the referendum question, I think that we can have many discussions and activities and initiatives put into place. But after the matter, what it comes down to is your right to sovereignty, your right to serve your members as you wish, but the clear pros and cons need to be outlined transparently. There needs to be a thorough analysis of what your health and dental plan would look like, what your lobbying powers would be. If you think that you don't have a voice at Senate as it stands, well, you won't be represented neither by SMU, MCSS, nor PGSS for quite some time. So there are many, many things to consider, but at the end of the day, it's your choice, and as long as that choice is made in a transparent and well-communicated fashion, I think that it's the same thing. We would respect your option, and McGill still unites us, and as the Internal Affairs candidate said, we would still collaborate on events to ensure proper collaborations within the student body.
Yeah, the choice that the voters will make will be respected. I mean, that we live in a democracy, it's good. It's just, as Jacob said, and he brought up the issue of healthcare, just the fact that PGSS and SMU are separated, they have way less bargaining power compared to FECOM at Université de Montréal, for example, who have all their members under the same umbrella, and they can get health plans that are way greater than what we get at PGSS. That said, so the point is that I think that voters need to vote in knowing these things. Because
we've discussed the health and dental plan. And
you
things
did?
like that we've been discussing with Jonathan Northland and the Office of Deputy Provost, and setting all those, or we've been having those discussions. So if the vote was to pass, everything's pretty much in place. We're waiting confirmation with student care on the health and dental plan. We're talking about merging with the MCSS health and dental plan, which is cheaper than the current PGSS health and dental plan.
Okay.
And we'll be expanding the MCSS base and be brought into those bargaining conversations.
All right. So that's exactly
Like it's
what I was
not
looking for.
this, like in February, student council voted unanimously to ask the question, but it wasn't like just then and there split decision. It was a 1-hour debate, and we've been bringing this up, or we've been discussing. This has been an issue for years. It's been hidden away because back when we got 50% of our fees back, that just kind of masked all the problems. And when that was removed, all these issues came out of the woodwork, and we've been talking about it a lot in council and previous PGSS meetings. We tried $5 motion. I brought up, the postgraduate campus organization. I didn't get a lot of fight in that. And so it's surprising right now, but on campus, it's been an issue that's been growing. It finally reached the point that council decided, okay, let's ask the student body this question.
Okay. All right. So as long as the voters are aware of the consequences of voting yes, then we respect your choice.
Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in?
I think my first reaction, if this is to pass, is to schedule a meeting with MCGSS that we move forward working on this together, that we have a clear action plan of what needs to happen over the next few months, next few years. The last thing we want is this to turn into a court case between MCGSS and PGSS.
But let's not pull a CF.
CFS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we come to a solution that works well for not only the PGSS, but also MCGSS and all of our students.
Yeah. And for example, we wouldn't just stop instantly paying our fees. If fee payments that'll be the very last thing of once everything's in place, negotiated, where powers are gonna lie, that sort of stuff. So we'll continue to pay the PGSS member fees up until the point where we've defined ourselves as our own standalone institution.
Because on the PGSS side, a lot of these things will require bylaw changes and SAM changes, so all the bylaw changes have to happen through referendum. So if we are to stop charging MAC members the fee, that has to go through a referendum question. So this is not a 2-month process. This is potentially a multi-year process, and as long as everybody's clear about what your students want and what all the organizations want, I think we can move forward together and come to an agreement or solution that works for everybody.
And what I really think it comes down to is we want to satisfy everyone, but some will require more resources than others. And if at the end of the day it's not feasible for us to host the number of events that you think is satisfactory, or to have the HR support here on hand, heck, PGSS buying